Okay, good morning everyone. This is a 30-minute big hair inversion. So what's big hair inversions? Well, there isn't a requirement that you yourself have big hair, but letting my hair out for practice for as long as possible. I usually can last maybe about 4 to 5 minutes with my hair out in general, just because it feels like I'm wearing a toque. For all the non-Canadians, a toque is a beanie elsewhere. I don't know where beanie comes from, but it's always toque for us. So we'll just jump right into it because time is of the essence, and downward facing dog to start with as a way to warm up the body. I've got my watch going, so there'll be some timed positions. This is where the hair gets pretty big, pretty fast. Yeah, if you also have big hair, you're welcome to just let your hair out for practice today. Here in down dog, have the feet separated about hip distance apart. The advantage there is when you bend your knees, you can tilt your sit bones up into the air a little bit easier, and then actively push your hands forward so that you send your hips higher up into the air. And then maintain the arch in your low back and push your legs a little bit straighter from there. Breathe deeply. If you're practicing alone at home, you're always welcome to breathe in and out through your mouth. If you're practicing with others, try to keep it through your nose. Okay, and then lower your knees down. This one isn't headstand, it's just prep for headstand. So tuck your chin in, bring the top of your head down, cup the back of your head, hug your elbows in, tuck your toes under, and lift your knees, and then pause here. So it's just down dog on your head, and that's all it is. So just putting a bit more weight into your head, and then practicing by pushing your forearms down so that you take some of the weight out of your head. And of course, this pose is a little bit easier than headstand because your feet are on the ground. This can be the prep for some to just continue doing headstand, especially if you have any neck issues or balance issues. The nice thing about big hair for this position is it just adds extra padding. Okay, lower your knees down, then rise onto your hands again, down dog, but just using this as transition to step forward for a standing forward fold position. Have your feet hip distance apart. Bend your knees enough to touch your fingers down, and then you're welcome to tuck your chin in, maybe even hold on to opposite elbows and sway a little bit from side to side. Okay, and then place your hands to your hips and inhale, come all the way up to stand. You can add the hair flip as well. Functional move. And then just reach your arms up, hold your left wrist with your right hand, slight lean to the side. And then come up and switch. Hold your right wrist with your left hand, lean to the left. And then back to center. And then hinge forward, clasp your hands behind your back, and bow forward with wide legs. Gosh, this big hair is out of control for me. Hope everyone else is surviving okay. You can bend your knees slightly. This is just opening up the shoulders a little bit. So if you're less flexible, it's just lifting the hands away from your hips. If you're more flexible, it's then moving the hands in the same direction that your toes are pointing. And then extreme flexibility, it gets towards hands to the floor. Okay, after this one, it's going to be headstand 1, which is the cupping the back of the head for 1 minute. We'll have a rest of about 1 minute. Headstand again, 1 minute, rest 1 minute, and then headstand for 1 minute. So that's 3 1-minute totals. If you're unsure, use a wall. And if you want to stay up the whole time, you've got an opportunity to do 5 minutes. So I'll get myself ready here. I'm just going to do it against the wall so that I can then, see back. But if you're unsure that you might flip over, than just have the wall behind you. And of course, some people are pretty rock solid on this one. See if I can set the watch up so I can see the timer as well. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Set yourself up if you're going up. If you need a little bit of guidance, be near the wall, tuck your chin in, hold the back of your head, point your elbows in, lift your knees, walk the feet in, lift one foot, lean, lift the other foot, then move the hips back as you lift your knees, and then from there you can extend up. The nice thing about having the wall, of course, is that you have the backstop if you're going to fall over. If you're working towards getting away from the wall and holding in the middle of the room, then just have the wall behind you, but try never to touch it until you eventually develop the confidence. Actively push down with your head and your forearms. Good news, just 15 more seconds for this first minute. Rest can be in child's pose or sitting on your heels. And of course, you're welcome to stay up. I'll keep the count going the whole time. You'll hear the beep of the watch. Okay, so that's 1 minute. Bring your knees in. Slowly lower yourself down. And then you can rest with your forehead to the floor in child's pose, arms back or forward. Or I often like to just sit on the heels as well. And then lift the spine in the opposite direction that gravity, of course, was resisting against. Breathing deeply. Those of you who are still up, that's 1.5 minutes. Way to go. Keep the drive alive. You can always pad your hair up. If you have a top knot, it adds an extra challenge for headstand. The timer's arbitrary, but your body isn't. So again, if you need to come down at any point, come down. Second minute beginning for those who are doing 1 minute at a time. So that's 2 minutes total if you've been up. So then round 2. We often hear from teachers, no jumping up. It's okay if you have a wall behind you and you're strong with your arms and head, and specifically neck. Actively push down through the entire length of your forearm, not just your elbows and your hands, but the base of your wrist, so that you can put a lot of weight into your head and forearms. It's a neat version of headstand, this one, because you can actually get to a point where you lift your head up into forearm stand. And at the same time, you can just use the forearms as guidance to put as much weight as possible into your head. Whether that's something you want to do or don't want to do, up to you. Last 5 seconds here. That's 3 minutes if you're still up. Way to go. And then slowly come down. You could go one leg at a time. And then have a little bit of a breather. What we call in Canada a body break. Whether you have Hal or Joanne there. And close your eyes, lift up. Those of you continuing to go, the next time you hear the beep, that'll be 4 minutes total, which is fantastic. That's incredible. One thing that's hard to do is faking a long headstand. You have to have practiced for years and years and slowly built up, and long being, well, over 3, 4, 5 minutes. If you're starting to get to 10 or 15 minutes, it can be pretty extreme. I've heard eventually it can take you get to a point past 10 minutes where adding another minute can take 1 to 3 years of extra practice. Okay, last one. Woohoo! Head on up. If you want to add some variations like wide legs, if you have the wall behind you, it's hard to do the spin and twist. Try to show it a bit with the wall. You have to add some sort of scissoring action a bit. There's also bicycle legs. You could do crisscross feet. I see sometimes people do the lower down and lift up. That's pretty intense. Great prep for press handstand. Continue to push down with your forearms, push down with your head. Breathe deep. Last 5 seconds here. One more breath in. And then as you exhale, slowly lower yourself down. And again, have your rest. Those of you in 5 minutes, enjoy your rest. There's often the teaching tip of rest for half the time you're in headstand. So for those of us that did just 1 minute at a time, we already did that. But if you did 5 minutes, that might mean like the next 2.5 minutes you're just resting. Resting is also called recovery. So you're just having your body recover from the work and the effort. It's not that you're just not doing anything. Okay, next position is on the forearms. And sometimes I just like to hold on to a block for this one. So you could either interlace your fingers or go hands in prayer position. I'm holding a block, but just down dog in a forearm position. Same as headstand without the head, unless you have big hair. If you have big hair, it feels like you're touching the floor. Especially if you have hair like the characters from Avatar. Remember Avatar? Remember when it came out? What was that, like 2008? And they said, oh, there'll be a sequel. It's like, all right, a sequel. And it's now like 12 years later, and it hasn't come out yet. But it's coming out. It's going to be great. Going to be as good as Jurassic Park 2, which is pretty great. Okay, and then rise up onto your hands, and then down dog, except try to position yourself where you can do a short down dog. We sometimes call that one Chihuahua or Wilby. And then have your back to a wall, and then from there lean into your hands, step one foot up and then the other foot up. And this is just a pretty accessible way to do handstand. After having just done headstand and then that forearm position as well, embrace that this might be a little bit challenging. So hold strong here for 3, 2, and 1. And then slowly come down from the wall, rise all the way up to stand, hands to your knees for recovery position. And then the bowspring pose recovery I use a lot for inversions, especially with handstand, just because it's a more active version of child's pose. So just put your hands to your knees. You can lean a little bit from one side to the other side. And then just standing up, cross one arm in front of you, hold the outside of the arm with the other. And you can just add a little bit of a swing and then switch. Okay, so should have probably mentioned at the beginning, it's helpful to have a wall, especially for handstand. The attempt here will be to go 1 minute in handstand, so it's just reaching the arms up like that, but then having the wall behind you. If you feel like you can do it without the wall, don't use the wall. Again, timer's arbitrary. You're not. I might join in for some, but I find I stop being able to talk. Be pretty close to the wall, maybe 1 or 2 centimeters with your longest finger. And then it is okay for your butt and your feet to come up to the wall. So timer begins. Set yourself up in 3, 2, and 1. Hair's out. Oh, I didn't make it on the first go. And that's actually okay if you don't make it the first go. I think that's better than just flinging yourself up and crashing through the wall. I have seen someone go through a wall. It was at a studio in Gastown. No pun intended. That's in Vancouver, downtown Vancouver. It was called Inner Space, and which is kind of funny as well. little bit of a pun there, that the fellow fell out of headstand and then found the inner space, the space between the walls. Hold strong, last 20 seconds here. So focusing on just building strength, lasting as long as you can. So timer's arbitrary again. And then 3, 2, and 1, and slowly come down. Again, pause, recovery position, hold here. So sometimes I hear people who say, oh, I want to do handstand, but they can't do handstand for a minute at the wall, and they want to do it in the middle of the room. And I'd say it's about 15 seconds of holding it in the middle of the room is the same as a minute at the wall. So one option is just to continue to hold your handstand for 1 minute at the wall. Another option though is to tire yourself out a different way, which is to go up the wall and then come down. So you just go up and tap and come down, tap and come down. And sometimes people feel like this is a remedial stage, but it's actually just teaching. It's just a drill. So don't underestimate knowing the basics. So it looks like this, where you just hop up, tap, and then come down, and hop up and tap and come down. Okay, so there's that second minute. Give it a go. Up to you. So if you are going up, you can tap just with your one heel. You could tap and then bring the second foot up and come down, or you could tap just with your butt, or butt and then heel. Up to you. If you're just holding the position, then push and stretch your arms all the way. You are welcome to bring your chin in towards your chest so you look across the room. That's nice because it lets your hair dangle and resist gravity, which is really nice. And again, if you have long enough hair, then that can connect to the floor. So down to the last 15 seconds. If you're doing the hop version, then you might be getting pretty tired pretty fast. So sometimes that's the point, is to literally tire yourself out. And then last 3 seconds, getting ready to lower down. It can be hands to your knees or sit down on your heels. And then if you want a little bit of a break for your wrists, you can cross your thumbs in front of your palms and just wrap your fingers around your thumbs. Move your knuckles forward, hug your elbows in. You can paw one hand and then the other hand. You can add a will be. The good news about if you did the hop version is that you have 2 sides. So you have the less good side. So I'll quickly demo because I'm not as good on my less good side. So it's hopping up and then just barely tapped. Hop, tap. You could then tap again. But just trying to land as light as you can for the downstairs neighbors. And then that's that 3rd minute. So give it a go. I'll just be the cheerleader. You're doing great. Keep it up. Fantastic. Push your arms straight. A little bit lighter. Calm down. Relax. Relax. That's my favorite, is when someone yells relax at you. That's not necessarily the way to relax. My hair is on fire right now. I'm resisting every urge to tie it back right now. I have the emergency hair tie around my wrist, but it's big hair inversions, so we're going for it. 20 more seconds here. Hopping up and down, up and down. Doing our best to hold. Last 10. And again, if you need the rest early, take the rest. And then 3, 2, and 1. And then make your way down. On this one, for a little bit of wrist love, it'll be in all fours. Flip one hand so you're on the back of your hand. And then you could push your arms straighter or move your hips back as a stretch, or you could even curl your fingers. If you want to do both hands at the same time, do that. And then just switch if you're just doing one. And then as well, if you're doing both hands and you want to go Lori style, so Lori Scholzberg style, then you can just step back into plank pose and do a push-up way beyond the limits of my ability. Okay, next one, you potentially could use a block or two. Let's quickly show it here. And that would be elbows to the block. You could then have your hands in prayer and then move your chest down from there. It is possible to do this with just being on the floor. So elbows down, elbows in, and then push your chest back. And then I know people who would go up onto something like this little bench or like the ballet bars and then push quite a bit. Just be mindful. It can be nice, even just a little gentle press down. So just giving the shoulders a little bit of love. And in preparation for forearm stand position. So going through the big three here with big hair inversions. The big three are headstand, handstand, and shoulder stand. Or pardon me, shoulder stand, forearm stand. Shoulder stand's the big four. I was really hoping that nothing could possibly go wrong, but then it did. Okay, and then slowly come up. So the challenge for forearm stand for some is that it's just harder to get into. So just offering an easier version of it with your back to the wall, where you curl in, go up for headstand, lift up for headstand, touch your feet at the wall, and then push down. This is where big hair is a big problem. Oh God, your arms can get stuck over top of your hair. But I'm in forearm stand. And then to come out, don't put your head down, just slowly lower yourself down. And then we've got 1 minute in that. If you want to hop up instead, you're welcome to. If you want to do the version we did with handstand where you step your feet up the wall this way, you can do that as well. So just setting the timer up. And 3, 2, 1. So your choice for forearm stand. Pincha Mayurasana, tail feathers of a peacock position. So you can either walk the feet up or hop up and hold. It's helpful to help the elbows in. You might prefer holding onto a block. That's actually my fave is to hug in that way, squeeze the block in. But prayer is nice. Prayer eventually leads to home alone position where you cup your cheeks and scream. It's a very similar warm-up as we did way back when we did the 2-hour lab classes. If anyone remembers that, we'd have 30 minutes of warm-up, which was essentially just inversions. So last 5 seconds. And then come on down, body break. Again, not necessarily a break, but just recovery. Same setup as handstand, which is opportunity to hop up again for a minute, or to do the hopping where you give a little bit of a tap. So the nice thing about forearm stand is you don't have to jump as aggressive. So if you're pretty open in your shoulders, it can be quite a bit easier than handstand. So it's just a little hop and then tap up. And then eventually control, maybe even move your feet away from the wall and hold the balance that way. I know Lauren, Shosh, maybe Veronica, if you're on as well, that you don't really need the wall there, but it's just there. But try for 1 minute holding without actually touching the wall. So setting up, here we go. 1 minute begins now. So hop yourself up and then see how much of the minute you can hold. And you're doing fantastic. Keep it up. Actively push down with the entire length of your forearm, just like you did in headstand. If you have
long arms relative to your head, you can always tuck your chin in a little bit. If you have a big brain, you may have to always look between your forearms with a lifted chin. The nice thing about forearm stand is that you have more of a base. So I think handstand is usually a little more accessible for people to try at the very beginning of their practice. But forearm stand eventually becomes easier than handstand to hold first in the middle of the room. And then what you learn in forearm stand, you apply for handstand. And then that's when you become invincible and can hold for as long as possible. Okay, and then rest period. And if you want to do something in your little bit of a rest period, you could go hands beside your hips and then lean back, or you could go hands to your heels for a little bit of a stretch back. So just giving yourself a moment to warm up the body for a back bend. For the last option of the big three on big hair inversions, which is forearm stand, but then with the opportunity to go into scorpion position. And the benefit here is that you, of course, can balance by dispersing the weight forward and back. It helps to be a bit further away from the wall with your hands, maybe an extra 10 to 20 centimeters. Hop up, and then bend one knee, point your toes, bend the other knee, point your toes. Lift your head, and then maybe move away from the wall with your feet. Okay, 1 minute begins now. If you can do all of that without actually touching the wall, go for it. For some, it's a little bit easier to do that than actually touch the wall because there's quite a bit of control. And I think that the scorpion version can sometimes be an easier version, in particular in handstand. Forearm stand, I think it's kind of the same. I just actually really like the scorpion version. But if you can then learn the principles of scorpion by looking forward as you arch your back. Eventually in handstand, you can then take the legs up and over, but look forward, and it prevents you from flipping over, and then you can hold yourself. And then those who are pretty strong, I know some of you on the video are, scorpion is where you then bend your elbows, and then it just unfolds like a fruit roll-up into chaturanga. Okay, good work. And then just all fours position. Here in all fours, just tilt your right ear to your right shoulder, and then go left ear to left shoulder, and then back to center. On an exhale, round your spine. On an inhale, arch your back, and then again, round in and arch. And then back to neutral, just move your hips back, sit on your heels, place your forehead down. You could cup the back of your head or reach your arms forward. In 2 cycles of breath. And then slowly rise up to a seated position. So if you want to get better, 100% every day, if you can do 3 1-minute headstands, 3 1-minute handstands, 3 1-minute forearm stands, you are going to get as strong as me. Look at these muscles. Those are major muscles. But you also just get confidence, and then eventually you'll be breaking away from the wall. But it just takes that work of doing it over and over again. But make your goals attainable. Don't just try and all of a sudden do 5 minutes headstand right off the bat. Unless, of course, you can, and you are doing that because you have years of experience. And that's all. So keep it up, and send me some messages if you have any questions. Namaste.